Good morning. Our hand today is going to be Queen 7 offsuit. We are in early position. We fold that, and we have our third in a row, blind versus blind. And I think these are the same two players from 2 days ago. Same situation. Folds around, small blind completes, big blind checks. I did not go back and check to see what range I assigned him. So I am just flying blind again, just kind of building ranges. We're looking at this guy playing 26-3. Small blind playing 33%. Doesn't have any limp first in, which I guess is part of calling, maybe. Not sure where that stat shows up, but I do know that he's had 5 attempts to steal from the small blind. He chose not to raise any of them, so he's just going to either be folding or calling. So what I did was kind of look through and kind of assume that he would have raised. It's not going to be a very large raising range because he doesn't exhibit a high frequency of raising, 3.5%. So 4 out of 117 hands. That's what he's raised pre-flop. We do have some information. So 2 days ago it was Jack 10 offsuit. So we need to make sure we have that. But then we can also look at the other limp call hands. King 10 suited, 9-8 off, King 10 off. So it looks like he's got broadways in there. It looks like he has some connectors in there. We've got called 2 bets from the blinds. You've got 6s and 3s, so you've got your pocket pairs. He's got ace queen suited plus, which suggests maybe he has ace queen and ace king, but that could be calling like a raise or whatever. We have probably suited aces. The only thing that really throws me off is 10-4 suited, and I wonder if that was from the big blind. There was a raise and a couple calls, and then he just called along with his suited hand. But I put together this range that looks something like this: 36%. I think it's probably in line with the frequency that he plays. We do have your connectors. I gave him some offsuit connectors, Jack 9 and 10-8, just just because. But this is going to be the range that we're going with. This guy chose not to raise. He's playing 15-12 with 3% 3-bet stat. His 3-bet range is queens, ace queen off, ace 10 off. 4-bet range is jacks, ace king suited. We have checks behind small blind with 6-5 offsuit. Yeah, queen 9-7. That was the board last time. So I'm just gonna say this guy here, jacks plus ace queen. Maybe it's wider, but I'm gonna say that's his raising range, and everything else is called. So you've got a massive range here, and then you've got somewhat tighter range. I should say narrower range, not necessarily stronger, but narrower range. And I would say it is stronger because we don't have all of these other weak hands in like this zone and this zone. All right, so we see a flop of Jack 9-5 rainbow. Somewhat connected. Backdoor flush draw potential. It was limped. I think this is a great spot for villain just to go ahead and check. I think this guy's got so many hands that will connect in some way that I just have a hard time believing that we're going to fold them out right away. So I do like villain's check in terms of like what is he doing that with. I don't think he's going to be checking sets or 2-pair. I don't really think he's doing like ace jack or king jack, maybe not even any of the top pair hands. Let's just get rid of, let's say he would have bet all top pair hands, but I think he has all of those. I think he's got his draws and so forth. So just gonna kind of X those out. So that's kind of his checking range at this point. Yeah, everything, and that includes all of those draws. What does villain 5 do? He checks behind. That's, I think, a little unusual here. So 0 out of 1 did not bet. He does fold the C bet. So So we got a C-bet, call C-bet in position 0 out of 4, call C-bet out of position 1 out of 1. We don't have a whole lot of those, so yeah, fold the C-bet for it, 4 out of 4. But he checks, so the question is, what was he going to check? Again, 2 pair, I think he's betting. I think top pair, he's betting. He could probably bet a lot more. He could probably bet like 10s. He could probably bet all the 9s. Probably bet under pairs. He could do all of his draws and stuff. And his C-bets kind of suggest that he does have that ability to bet those hands, but I'm going to say that he's probably checking gut shots. Your no-made hand. I don't think he's going to be checking the open-ender. I don't think he's checking sets or 2 pair. Over pair, top pair. I don't think top pair is going to be checked here. Tens are somewhat interesting. I think I would be betting tens once it was checked. He might not. And same thing with middle pair. I think we're going to say tens and middle pair are going to possibly be checks. And then we've got the rest. So hands are just kind of becoming somewhat weak. Queen of clubs comes out. At this point, yeah, I think villain 4 should be betting. I think he should be attacking. Villain's got a load of hands, and his check behind just really demonstrates that he doesn't have a super strong hand, so he should be betting. This guy checks, so I'm going to exclude the straights. I'm going to exclude the top pair and just basically give him all of the junk. So I'm going to make sure we've X'd out all of these. And then villain 5 checks behind, which again is just suggesting weakness. I'm saying straights are out, 2 pair. 2 pair might be in, possibly. You know, where they're scared of the straight. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. Top pair is going to be a check, just almost guaranteed. So you can see it's just hands are weak. Hands are weak. And then ace of clubs. I mean, this is just an incredible run out. I mean, if he bet the turn and gets called, he could bet the river and probably get a fold from all like 1 pair hands. Yeah, probably from all 1 pair hands. I mean, that ace is going to be scary for big blind. I mean, villain 4 just entered in. You give him all of the ace x hands. Yeah, big blind also has the ace x hands, but big blind didn't have to do anything. He could check and take a flop. So all those ace x hands are diluted by all the other hands that are in this range. So I guess not surprising. First guy checks. Yeah, not a flush. Not a flush. We'll leave 2 pair plus in there. 2 pair, top pair, weak pair. Villain 5 checks behind. Again, gonna exclude the flush. He's gonna have and 2 pair or weaker, and again, just this is unreal. So we got a 9-8 here. There are 9-8. Is that in there? Yeah, weak pair. Have that in the range, and then 3-2 offsuit. I mean, that's in there. Yeah, that's that weak pair. That's so. It is what it is. So I'm gonna take some notes, and then we're gonna we have to comment on this because again, this is now we see it, and there are certain tables where you'll see this quite a bit. So Jack of diamonds, 9 of hearts, 5 of clubs, Queen of clubs, Ace of clubs. All right, there's that. Check behind SB complete and big blind with 3 hearts, 2 spades in position. Check, check, check. All right. So just like before, Great situation. You'll notice it. Hopefully, you are not completing in the small blind. Hopefully, it is a raise or a fold for you. Um, but you're gonna get it in the big blind a lot as you play. You'll get it more, especially at the micro stakes. Probably not so much at the higher stakes. At the higher stakes, though, you have to be tricky because these players will now have a limping range. They'll have a completing range. That's part of their strategy. So don't assume that those players are going to be weaker. Same thing. I'm going to say 25 and above, but 25 still has quite a few 10 NL players that will play up and take shots and play this way. And definitely at live game, it's not. You'll normally you just chop it, but in a tournament setting, yeah, I don't think you'll see as many limps, but I could be wrong. I haven't played a whole lot of tournaments. So, anyways, you're gonna see this. You're gonna likely be in the big blind here. He limps. You have the opportunity to complete. If they limp, just attack, just raise, go for it. We can kind of look at what our big blind. We're dealing with like blinds, isolation raising. Here's the okay blinds, okay limps. That's a if you have a limp behind strategy. Here's the ISO raising range that you can deal with. If you're looking at big blind versus small blind, you could do this. You can raise all of those, the red and the gray, if the big blind completes and just attack them. You figured to have a stronger range, and you're going to take the initiative, which is what you want to do. So, pre-flop, he limps, just go ahead and raise. Your hand's not that great. You could just check behind, take the flop, especially with the 3-2. And then on this board, once he checks, attack, bet. You've got nothing, you're just going for a bluff. You bet if he calls, then queen comes out and he checks again. I would probably bet again. And if he calls again, then I think I'm going to be done. We're just attacking because he showed weakness. And I've seen a lot of times where he completes, he misses, and then he's going to fold to the flop, or he's going to fold to a turn card. In this case, the queen was actually pretty decent. We could have had a lot of, we could have a 10, we could have a jack, we could have queen 10, we could have queen 9. So the queen hits, that could actually help our hand. I don't think this guy's going to fold the flop. It's questionable if he folds the turn or not. With the gut shot, he's hoping for the 10. But you do have to watch. If you always do this, then these players will start to call down with one pair hands. And I don't think I have any of that. So I think that's the strategy for this guy. I think once you check behind on the flop, it's going to be hard to represent anything. So I think it's going to be harder to get the folds. But if it goes check on the flop and then check on the turn and he checks the river, then go ahead and bet. Go ahead and bet. It's going to be hard for 8-9 to call. You will have like your entire range you're going to need. You can't win with 3-2 no matter what. Even at showdown, it's not high enough. So just go ahead and bet. Go ahead and bluff with it. Pot small enough, go ahead and bet two big blinds. Try to represent the ace or flush or whatever. That could be in there. What about this player? Don't limp. His limp really got him in trouble. I think he could bet. He's got middle pair with with a backdoor straight draw. I think a 6, a 7, a 6, a 7, and 8. That's here. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Queen would all help his range. So I think he bets on the flop. There's a lot of cards that can come that he can then follow up with the second barrel. And I think that's what I would do. That's what I think he should do. Once he gives up, checks the flop, then I think it's going to be hard for him to come back and bet the turn and really represent anything. The best he could do is represent a queen, which he could do. He has some queens, um, but why not bet anyways? Like if you think about the queens that he has, king queen, uh, queen jack, queen 10, some queen 9. Those are all hands that I kind of expect to bet. So if he comes out and bets on the turn, I'm thinking, I just don't necessarily think you have a queen, because why wouldn't you have bet that? It does take some uh, kind of getting over your fears to make those calls, but work through these hands. You'll start to see some of the patterns emerge, and some of the weaknesses for the players. So I think that's all that we're going to do with this hand. However, I did bring up some ranges, blind versus blind. So we've got, how it should have gone was fold, 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 and then this guy should be raising or folding. And based on some GTO ranges, this is what I worked up. So, this is going to be the raising range. It's big. You can see it's 54% of hands he's going to raise with, including the actual hand that he has, 9-8. So he raises, and then big blind should be playing also a pretty decent defense strategy. So here I have the calls. So we're going to say small blind raises and then big blind calls. How do we proceed with that? We've talked about ranges and having big ranges. When you have a big range, you're not going to be c-betting a whole lot. Well, Jack 9-5 is one of those boards. First up, he's got small blind has initiative. You can see c-bet's only 38%. And it's because he's got a lot of junk in his hand. He's got a lot of hands that kind of miss, but at the same time, he does have hands that connect weakly with this board. Weakly in the sense that you have straight draws, backdoor flush draws, and so forth. So what your play is to bet your strong hands, but then also mix in some of your weak hands. And at the same time, you also have to have some of those strong hands in your checking range, so that when you check, it's not an automatic, oh, you checked, I'm going to start attacking because I know I'm weak. This is for real good thinking players, or against real good thinking players. So your sets, yeah, sometimes your 5s, your 9s, you're going to check those. Jacks, you're going to be betting. You're going to be attacking. Especially with jacks, you kind of figure top pair's not going to be out there, so you're going for hopefully under pairs or draws. 2-pair, same thing. 2-pair, you're going to mostly be betting here. You're going to be mostly be betting, but you're going to have some checks. Your weak pairs, you do have some of the time you're going to bet just to kind of keep them in your range. Open enders, you're not always betting those. You are out of position, and you have a wider range. You have a much wider range than the in position player. So if he checks, oftentimes you check, big blind's going to bet because you gave up your initiative, and then you're going to be calling. And this is where you keep some of those good hands back. It's not you're going to plan to check call. It's that you're looking at a check raise with your premium hands. So sets now become check raises. 2-pair, it's going to be mostly check raises, but now with 2-pair, you're going to start having some check calls, including your overpair. So note the overpair. Aces are a check call, but kings and queens are check raises. I think the kings and queens are check raises because they can be vulnerable. If an ace comes out, that's going to be really bad because villain has these ace-x hands, ace-x offsuits in his range. So I think aces are more vulnerable. And again, we want to keep some decent hands in because we are going to be check calling with some of our draws, with some of our open enders, with some of our gut shots. What if we bet and villain calls? What's villain doing? Oh, let's go. We check. His bet should be at the sets, 2-pair, top pair. Again, he's aware GTOs, plus software is looking at understanding the small blind is withholding some checks, withholding some good hands, and using them as checks. So he's not automatically betting here. even though, exploitatively you could. I think you could. But GTO, you're betting your sets, your two pair, top pair, some of your middle pairs getting bets. Your ace 9 9 8. Some of those middle pairs are being held back. It's kind of like a buffer, kind of like with your top pairs. Some of your like Jack 6, Jack 7s. It's kind of weak kicker. You're going to check call. You kind of imagine that if you have a top pair weak kicker, you check call and then you check the turn. If villain checks behind, your top pair is probably good. But this is kind of the range that he was going to bet. So, but I want to go back to we bet. Villain calls. Villain's calling with a lot, and we expect villain to call with a lot. If he's calling all the way down to his weak pair hands, his one pair hands, he's going to have open ender cut shots. This is probably a situation that I get myself into where I bet, I get called, and then it's like, okay, I know he probably has a lot of these weaker hands. What do I do on the turn? So we'll start with the queen of clubs. What do we, after we bet our 37%. Now we're betting more, a little bit higher, because again, we've already checked a lot of our weaker hands. So now our range is actually improved. Once we bet, our range has gotten stronger, so now we can see bet more. And I've said that before in videos where, if you have a wide range and you're going to see bet a lot, then on the turn you're going to have to really pull it back because you have a lot of junk in your hand. But if you have a wide range and you don't see bet a whole lot, then when you do see bet, your turn barrel frequency is going to be much higher because you've got better hands. So that's the same thing happens here. Here we're 50-50. So we bet, we're going to continue betting our straights. We're going to be betting our three of a kind for value, two pair for value, over pair for value, top pair for value, and we're keeping our flush draws in there for balance, open ender for balance, gut shots for balance. We're targeting about 50-50, and again, we're going to keep some hands in as a check. So some of our two pair, your Jack 5 hands, looks like 9-5, kind of keeping them as a check call, because we don't want to bet with those get raised and then be like, oh crap, we're going to have to fold them. So I think a check call is probably the appropriate for them. But you can see that we are betting, even though that queen comes up, that helps our range, might also help the calling range, but we're going to bet. And then villain's still calling at 56%. He's folding, over 40% of the time here. We don't expect to see a raise. If you get a raise here, then you're probably going to be behind. And GTO at this point is going to have you call with middle pair, even though you kind of know you're beat. And that's because the villain, if he's going to be raising with the straight, he needs to be raising with some of his draws. And so we kind of expect him to be raising with some of these dual draws. 10-8, that's a straight. Jack 8, looks like you've got, your pair, you've got a, yeah, those are straight draws. 10-7, open ender. You're betting those. Jack 8 of clubs. You've got a pair with, flush draw. Those are your straights. King Jack. Looks like you're throwing in some of these hands that do have still have some draw potential. But it's balancing all the straights that we have and the three of the kind that we have here. So, if he raises us, GTO wants us to say, go ahead and call. My experience, though, at the micro stakes, players don't have that. They don't have these draws. If they're raising you, they've got a straight. They're raising you because they're afraid of the flush. So if that's the case, then you just basically look at what do you have to call? What's the pot odds? Am I getting the pot odds to chase the flush or not? If you don't have the flush, it's probably just going to be a fold for you. What happens if villain calls again? villain calls, then we kind of scale back what we're betting on. Now it's going to be much more just value, so 2 pair plus. Top pair now has some showdown with the ace. We're not betting our middle pairs or jacks or queens. We can throw in some weak hands, hands that we don't expect would win at showdown, and that's really just to kind of balance. We probably have 2 to 1, 2 value for every 1 bluff. What if that's not a queen? Let's change this to something smaller. Let's say it's a rainbow, a 3. Even with the rainbow, still we're betting. We've increased our frequency, and so forth. What if we pair jack? We're still at 52%. What if an ace comes? 54%. What if an 8 comes? 45%. Really, I think that tens are betting. That kind of helps us actually, because we have a lot of 10s in our range. 8s, 7s. But anyways, I think you're seeing it. We could spend a lot of time just changing. We could change boards, and I've done that. I've changed a lot of boards in this scenario just to kind of see what should we be doing. And again, GTO recommends a very good mixed strategy where we have a mix of bets, a mix of calls with strength and with weakness, and it's to battle the thinking players, the players that are playing tricky. You may encounter some of these players in the live game. You might encounter a small number at the micro stakes, but usually you can just use the GTO as a guide and then adjust based on what we see. I don't see a whole lot of players making those plays with a backdoor gut shot. Making a check raise with a backdoor gut shot. You just don't see that. Not at the micros. So hopefully you see it. Hopefully you're not completing from the small blind. Hopefully it's a raise or fold for you, and hopefully you start paying attention to these blind versus blind situations and see what happens when players check. When players go check, then chances are they've missed, they're weak, and especially if he checks one more time on that turn. It's that is your sign that you need to start betting to try to win this pot. Hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, you can look tomorrow for another.